Welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing Spy X Family Project W.E.B. What if Loid Forger was Spider-Man Noir? Season 1, Part 7. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. I can safely say that now that we've entered into Part 7, that the Season 1 finale is just around the corner. In fact, it might be here sooner than you think. But before we get to that point, we still have a lot more story to tell in Season 1 of our series. The Forger family, a family built on secrecy and lies, but yet something true still forms among them. The father, the spy, the hero, and the family man. The mother, a loving, caring soul with a secret past in the life of assassins. And finally, the daughter, a hopeful, bright-eyed girl who was the product of many experimentations. Follow along as we now continue today's video. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The spy, the hero, the husband. Loid Forger, Twilight. Spider-Man, who was he really? He was all of these things, and yet he were none of these things. He was whatever he needed to be in that moment. What was even his real name? Honestly, that was nothing more but a vestige of his past. What was the name of that young boy affected by the war? He had almost long since forgotten his name. He had forgotten everything about him. There was only one part of that young boy that remained. The part that thirsted for vengeance. The hatred towards the vulture. That was the only part that even remotely existed. But once that revenge was quenched, even that would fade away. Who was he really, deep down inside? When you get to a point when you don't even know what your own name is anymore. You're nothing more but a blank canvas that's painted whatever shade or color that needs to be. We turn our attention to Loid Forger, happily married man who tragically lost his wife and remarried just a year prior. At least that's what the world thought. He stumbled into the house tiredly. He had had a long day of work, if you will. Although honestly, you could say that his entire week had been like that. Not just in the field of being a psychiatrist, for whatever that was worth, but also in terms of being the hero of Ostania, Spider-Man. Between dealing with trains that were always flying off the tracks, between dealing with a mad scientist turned lizard that tried to turn the whole population into lizards, and between dealing with a former electrician turned common criminal that gained electric powers, safe to say Loid was overdue for just a little rest. And it didn't help matters when he saw, among many things in his home, Anya playing with her babysitter / guardian, Natasha, Yor, who was cooking that same soup, but it was good, so there was no point in complaining. And then there was Nightfall, a former agent in Wise, whom Loid, aka Twilight, had trained. But that wasn't her name here. Her name was Fiona Frost. She had come on the pretext of work-related issues, but actually she had come because Loid, well, to be more specific, it was now time for Twilight to go to work. They had a mission, It was going to be to infiltrate a underground tennis tournament being hosted by a wealthy tycoon by the name of Kavi Campbell. The main reason was because the prize was anything from his collection, among money and treasures that weren't obtained in the most legal of circumstances. There was a famed painting, that actually contained a hidden message from an old-time war general, which, if uncovered, could potentially spark a war between the East and West. Of course, you would think all of this sounded entirely ridiculous, but still, it wasn't uncommon for something so small to spark a flame that could burn down an entire nation. Sure, he could ignore it, but he knew he wouldn't. All the same, though, Fiona, in this particular case, hadn't just come to deliver the news of the mission. No, she wanted to get a good look at to get a good look at this family that her master had created. Of course, it wasn't lost on anyone in the agency that Nightfall had a bit of a crush on Twilight. Although, given his skills, his professions, what girl wouldn't? But still, though, she didn't understand why he didn't come to her. I mean, if it was about forming the perfect family, then wouldn't they have worked better together? Why take some random ditzy girl from the civilian population? It just didn't make any sense. If she was in charge, for one, Natasha wouldn't be here. Anya wouldn't have gotten a single tenacious bolt on her watch. In fact, the girl probably would have been on her way to getting all of the Stella stars by now. This was just a sloppy shop. Of course, she would never question Twilight or his methods, but still, maybe he just didn't have good judgment at the time. We all make mistakes, even the best of us. It was something that could be forgiven. This wasn't just a mission for her, no. This was an opportunity to show her true worth, to show what she was truly capable of. Of course, Loid would have to come up with some excuse, that being that he and Fiona were going to be participating in some local charity tennis tournament event. It was just something to do, and he wouldn't take long. In the meantime, Yor, Natasha, and Anya would be waiting at the park. Of course, Yor was, safe to say, less than enthusiastic. Even she could recognize how skilled of a person Fiona was, and well, given her nature, she feared that the woman might potentially take away her husband and her family. Of course, Natasha would assure her that that wouldn't happen, but this was an opportunity. They could use this time to train and sharpen their skills. They had a couple of extra tennis rackets and a couple of extra tennis balls. Plus, with the park being free and with the spare court, the two decided to have a little sparring match. Of course, the only one who was completely aware of anything that was going on here was actually Anya, and, well, she was enthusiastic. Mama Agent and Auntie Agent are gonna go at it! This is gonna be so much fun! Anya would take her seat with her bag of peanuts as she was getting ready to watch the show, as Natasha and Yor would take their stands on opposite sides of the tennis court. Safe to say, this was going to be a battle that would never be forgotten. In the meantime, Loid and Fiona were going to be posing as a married couple. They were going to be pretending to be from some rich elite family. After all, this was underground. And with it being underground, it was contested under underground rules. Essentially being that there were no rules. There were those that were cheating blatantly and secretly, along with those who were, well, just using steroids to the max. This wasn't just any regular doubles tennis tournament. No, it was a tournament among monsters, to say the least. However, with Loid using his incredible spider-enhanced strength, and with Fiona using the skills that were gifted to her in her training under Loid, the two of them were able to clean house just fine. making it all the way to the finals, where they would have to go up against Campbell's own children, his daughter and his son. Of course, they didn't think much of it as they were in their own waiting room preparing for the finals. That was until Loid's spire sense would go off. Along with his just natural deduction and seeing the faintness in the vents, the two would then stuff themselves into the closet as Loid would use Morse code to tell Fiona to hold her breath. The reason being, they were flooding the room with some sort of gas, more than likely trying to drug them up and psych them out. For Loid, his body was pretty resistant to most of these type of tactics, but even he could be susceptible somewhat if he stayed in it for too long. And unlike him, Fiona didn't have any superhuman natural strength or other feats that could protect her, so these were the precautions she'd have to take. Being trained agents, they learned to survive in the most extreme of circumstances. At most, they could hold their breath for roughly 8 to 10 minutes, but that was on the extreme end. And even still, they were going to incur some of the toxic gas before it was time to start. Seeing as how they had been locked in their room, this was probably their plan from the start, to gain every advantage that they could. All the same, both Fiona and Loid would have to overcome this to the best of their abilities. With the finals now getting underway, Loid and Fiona would go up against the children of the tycoon Campbell, his daughter and his son. The two had no qualms about cheating and about being openly blatant about it, as they had specially made rackets that were specifically designed to give them the edge, one even having, rocket boosters. Of course though, Loid and Fiona were also able to counter, even as they were being shot at through the crowd, along with the very floor underneath them shifting and turning every which way. The two managed to overcome every obstacle and every challenge thrown in front of them. Eventually though, Loid had enough, and he decided to tap into some of that extra spire strength, deciding that he was done playing around, and with Fiona backing him up, they finished the match and they claimed victory. Of course, this wasn't in the cards for Campbell, but still, he thought that he could get over on the two at least one last time, instead promising them any prize that they wanted from his collection, only to try to give them fakes at the last moment. Of course though, Loid and Fiona were quickly able to see through the deception, and in the end they were able to get what they came for. Also, Loid saw this as an opportunity, as he would tell Fiona to go on ahead. He switched into his Spider-Man attire, before having Frankie give off a tip to the Estonia secret police, and before you knew it, the entire underground criminal organization of Campbell ended up getting raided. Of course, Loid would take the advantage though, making sure that some of that jewelry, some of that priceless artwork was turning up missing. But when you have a bundle like this, some of it's allowed to go undetected. After he had done so, he made sure to drop it off somewhere for Frankie to find. That way he, along with himself, as well as Felicia, could split it. That could serve as payment for helping him out with getting that castle. Because truthfully, if he had had to make the agency pay for all of that stuff, yeah, they definitely would have been on his head, especially Handler. All the same though, everything worked out, and as Loid and Fiona would return back to the park, as the evening sun was starting to set, they found Anya sitting on a bench with the most blank of looks on her face. They turned to see what had happened, and if you didn't know any better, you would think that a war had been fought in the park. The fences had all been dented with multiple tennis balls. The tennis, net was almost on fire with multiple holes ripping through it as well, and lying on the ground in bruised and sweaty heaps were both Natasha and Yor. Yor, are you all right? Loid would ask as he helped his wife to her feet.
Oh, Loid, yeah, we're fine. Things just got a little, chaotic.
Chaotic? You look like you both almost put each other through hell.
It's nothing,
Natasha would say, although that actually wasn't the case. You see, the match started well enough. It was going fine at first, even though Yor had never played tennis a day in her life. She picked up on it rather fast. Although Natasha, she tried to have a little fun with it, she ended up serving a ball that ended up slicing in the air, and it ended up jabbing Yor in the ribs. Well, Yor responded with a power strike that ended up bruising Natasha in the thigh, and well, it eventually devolved into the two girls blasting each other with balls at every opportunity. Yes, I know exactly how that sentence sounds, but no, it is nothing like that. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm probably breaking the fourth wall here, but you know, you're gonna see in the comment section. In either case, it ended up turning into more of a heated spar than anything else. And before you knew it, the rackets were dropped to the ground, and the two girls, well, they started beating the holy crap out of each other. Some bruises started turning into deep black and blue marks. Some bones got cracked. A rib or two might have gotten broken as well, but honestly, you wouldn't be able to tell between the two of them. The fact that they were able to do this much damage and being able to walk relatively fine only showed just how monstrous the strength that the two possessed. Of course, Fiona, seeing this as an opportunity, decided to challenge Yor to a match, just to see for herself. Of course, Loid was against this, but Yor was more than welcome to accept the challenge. And Yor did not hold back. With one strike of the tennis ball, it went straight through Fiona's own tennis racket, and it crashed into the fence behind her. Safe to say the match was over before it even had a chance to start. And Fiona, well, was completely dejected by this. So dejected that she ended up going into the woods for over a month to train in solitude in order to hopefully get her rematch. Of course, though, Loid would end up taking the girls home, getting them both to rest, respectively. They were definitely something else. However, as he ended up helping to wrap up Yor's bandages, and as he tucked her in the bed as she would fade into sleep, seeing the peacefulness wash all over her face, it brought him a strange sense of comfort. He wasn't entirely sure why. The same thing with Anya. He turned to his room as he was preparing to retire for the night. They were both happy. They were able to smile. That was why he did what he did. Is why he accepted the life that he did as well. He may not have had a name anymore. He may not have had any own purpose or dreams or goals, but he still had the mission to create a world where everyone could smile like that. A world where no one would have to suffer ever again. For that, he would endure whatever it took. Whatever trials or tribulations came with his job, whether it be Loid Forger, the husband, Agent Twilight, the spy, or even Spider-Man, the hero. To protect those smiles, he would be whatever he needed to be. This concludes Spy X Family Project Web. What if Loid Forger was Spider-Man Noir? Season 1, Part 7. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications to stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Neon Genesis Evangelion The Spire's Thesis. What if Shinji Ikari was Spider-Man Part 7? But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.